It was a night that reeked of opulence, an annual gala hosted by one of the largest holding company in the city, a gathering where every elite figure made their appearance. Power was currency here, whispered through laughter, measured in how many eyes turned when you entered the room, and in the center of it all stood him, John Jungkook, her husband. He wore power like a tailored suit. In fact, his black tuxedo was as immaculate as the sharp line of his jaw. His hair combed back with ruthless perfection, broad-shouldered, lean, and intimidating. Jungkook looked like he owned the very ground everyone stepped on, and in truth, in some ways, he did. He was the cold CEO everyone feared, untouchable, unreadable, dangerously composed. Beside him, his wife silently, fingers lightly curled around the stem of her champagne glass. Wine was beautiful, though she never flaunted it. The soft pink of her gown contrasted with the bold sharpness of the woman around her, but it only made her look more ethereal. A single diamond pendant gleamed at her throat, a gift from Jungkook, or rather a statement of ownership he had placed around her neck the day after their wedding. She felt it sometimes, the weight of the necklace, not because of its worth, but because of what it meant. The marriage wasn't born of romance, it had been an arrangement, a merger of two powerful families. She had stepped into this world of wealth like a guest, always aware of how out of place she was. And Jungkook treated her with the same courtesy one would show to an acquaintance at a boardroom table. Polite, formal, detached. They weren't strangers, but they weren't lovers either. Tonight she stayed by his side because appearances demanded it. Every smile she forced, every glance she accepted, every nod she gave felt rehearsed. Stay close, Jungkook had murmured before they entered the ballroom. His hand at the small of her back. The touch had lingered, fleeting yet firm, enough to make her heart stumble, but when she had looked up, his expression had been carved from eyes. No warmth, no softness, only control. So she stayed. Vine listened to conversations she couldn't relate to, laughed quietly when expected, and tried to be the perfect accessory to the perfect man. The perfection never lasted. The incident happened so quickly, Vine barely had time to process it. Vine had excused herself for a moment, needing air away from the suffocating conversations about stocks and power plays. She stepped toward the edge of the ballroom into the quietest shadows near the balcony doors. That's when he approached. Kim Lucas. He was notorious even within these circles slick with money and arrogance. A man who thought the world owed him everything simply because he was bold enough to demand it. He was wrong though. That much was clear from the flush of his cheeks and the looseness of his smile. Well, if it isn't Miss Cheon, he drawled, blocking her path to the balcony. I didn't know Jungkook let his wife walk around alone. Risky move, isn't it? She stiffened, her fingers tightening around her clutch. Excuse me, she said, voice firm but polite. But Kim Lucas leaned closer, the stench of alcohol on his breath. You are wasted on him, you know. Cold man like that doesn't even look at you properly. I have watched you all night. His eyes dropped in a way that made her skin crawl. Pretty thing like you deserves attention. Her pulse chinked. Mr. Kim, you should. And then, without warning, his hand brushed against her waist. Lower, bold, brazen. Her breath hitched. She froze, her heart thundering, disgust flooding her veins. She shot his hand away instantly, voice sharp. Don't you dare. But Lucas only smirked, leaning closer. Oh, come on, what's the harm in a little? What the hell do you think you're doing? The voice cut through the music like a blade. Deep, cold, dangerous. Her stomach throbbed. Chenko. He was there, standing just a few feet away, and he had seen everything. The composure he always carried was shattered now. His jaw was tight, eyes sharp enough to burn holes through Lucas. Every muscle in his body looked coiled, restrained by nothing but the thinnest thread of control. Lucas laughed, though it faltered under their gaze. Ah, Jungkook, your wife and I were just. You touch her. Jungkook's voice was low, almost calm, but lethal in its restraint. The guests nearby began to turn, whispers already rippling. The music felt dimmer, as if the orchestra itself had faltered under the tension. Relax, Lucas said, lifting his hands in mock innocence. It was nothing. Don't be so dramatic. The sound that followed was sharp, startling, a fist colliding with the jaw. Lucas staggered back, clutching his face, eyes wide with shock. The room gasped collectively, but Jungkook wasn't done. You think you can touch what's mine? His voice thundered, now raw and fury. You can disrespect her in front of me? Each word dripped with venom. His usual icy calm replaced with an intensity that made even seasoned tycoon step back. He grabbed Lucas by the collar, yanking him close. Try it again and I will destroy you. Not just here, not just now. I will ruin you in ways you can't even imagine. The man who never lost his cool, who never raised his voice in boardrooms or negotiations, was now unrecognizable. Lucas stammered something incoherent, too shaken to respond. Jungkook shot him back with such force that Lucas stumbled against a table, sending glasses crashing to the floor. No one moved to help him. All eyes were on Jeon's nap. She stood frozen, her chest heaving, mind spinning from shock. Jungkook turned then, his gaze finally landing on her. For a brief second she saw something in his eyes, something she had never seen before. Not the cold distant mask, not indifference, but rage, possessiveness, a terrifying protective fire. And beneath it all, something softer, something that almost looked like fear. He stepped toward her, his movements controlled but his voice rougher than usual. Are you hurt? Her lips parted, but no sound came out at first. She shook her head quickly. No, I. Her throat tightened. I'm fine. He didn't look convinced. His hand lifted as if to touch her arm, then hesitated in mid-air. For the briefest moment he seemed unsure, vulnerable. Then, with a sudden decision, he placed his hand gently at her elbow, steadying her. Stay with me, he murmured, almost too low for anyone else to hear. It wasn't a command this time, it was something else, something that made her heart ache. The whispers in the ballroom grew louder. People exchanged glances torn between shock and fascination. The untouchable Jeon Jungkook had just lost his composure publicly for the sake of his wife. And the night would not be forgotten. But for her, the memory is deeper than the scandal it caused. Because for the first time since their marriage, she had seen him crack. For the first time, she realized she mattered to him. The ride back home was suffocating. The sleek black Rolls-Royce glided through the sleeping city, its tinted windows shutting out the world. But inside, silence reigned heavier than the luxury leather seats could bear. She sat pressed against the door, her hands knotted tightly in her lap. The faint reflection of streetlights flickered across her pale face, but her eyes stayed fixed on the blur outside. Her chest still rose and fell unevenly. The memory of Lucas' hand had wandered while still imprinted on her mind. But worse than that was Jungkook. He sat beside her, his posture rigid, one arm propped on the armrest, fingers curling and uncurling as though he was holding back a storm. His jaw checked every so often, the only crack in his cultured control. Neither spoke, not when the driver had opened the car door at the hotel's entrance after the party ended, not when Chengu had placed his hand firmly at her back and steered her through the flashing cameras, shielding her body with his own, not when whispers followed them, hungry and scandalous. Jian Chenggu threw a punch tonight for his wife, no less. Maybe their marriage isn't as cold as we thought. She hadn't wanted to hear any of it. She just wanted to disappear. Now, inside the cocoon of the car, her thoughts warred. He had fought for her. He had lashed out violently, possessively when someone touched her. He called her mine in front of everyone, and yet. Her throat tightened as she replied the look in his eyes when he had turned to her after punching Lucas, the fury, the rawness, the vulnerability that had been there for only a second before vanishing behind his mask. It felt her unsettled, confusing, aching in places she hadn't allowed herself to feel since their marriage. Because wasn't this what she had wanted? For him to care, for him to show something? But the way he had done it, it had been too much, too public, too intense, too everything. She didn't know how to process it. They reached the penthouse past midnight. The elevator ride up felt like another eternity. The soft hum of the machine filled the silence, but neither of them looked at each other when the door slid open to reveal the vast glass walls of their living room. She stepped out quickly, her heels clicking against the marble. She went straight for the bedroom without waiting. Wait. His voice stopped her halfway down the hall. It wasn't loud, it wasn't commanding, but something about it made her freeze. Slowly she turned, her fingers tight around the strap of her purse. Chengok stood there in the door, his tie loosened, the first button of his shirt undone, a rare imperfection. His eyes were shadowed, unreadable. "Are you hurt?" he asked again, just as he had in the ballroom. She blinked. "I told you I'm fine." Her voice was sharper than she intended. He didn't flinch. He just studied her as if trying to see beneath her skin. "You are shaking," he said quietly. "I'm not." She wasn't, at least not anymore. The adrenaline had burned itself out, leaving only exhaustion, but his words unsettled her, because even if she wasn't physically trembling, something inside her was. Chenguk stepped closer. Not too close, he never did. Just enough that air between them thickened. "I shouldn't have let you walk away from me tonight." Her lips parted. She wasn't sure what stirred her more, that he admitted fault or that his tone carried a hint of regret. "You didn't let anything happen," she said after a pause, her voice trembling despite herself. "He chose to." She stopped, unable to finish. Chenguk's jaw clenched, his hands curled into fists at his sides. "If I hadn't arrived when I did." "But you did," she cut in, sharper now, anger rising to shield her vulnerability. "You punched him in front of everyone. Do you ever know what people say?" "I don't give a damn about what they say." His voice was still low and rough. "Well, I do," she snapped. The echo of her voice bounced off the glass walls, startling her as much as it startled him. For a moment they just stared at each other, and then she turned, walking swiftly into the bedroom and shutting the door. The silence began that night. She changed into her nightdress with trembling fingers, her mind spinning. She lay on her side of the bed, facing the wall, pretending to be asleep when he entered later. She felt the bed dip slightly under his weight, heard the faint rustle of him undoing his shirt. He didn't reached for her as if he was afraid if he would break the softness in her, and so she squeezed her eyes shut and let the silence swallow them both. The next morning she woke up with her cheek against something warm. Her heart skipped before her mind caught up. Jungkook's bare chest. At some point in the night she had unconsciously drifted closer. His arm was wrapped over her waist, heavy, possessive even in sleep. His breath fanned against her hair, steady and calm. For a fleeting moment, she let herself feel it, the comfort, the safety, the illusion that this was more than a contract, that maybe she wasn't as alone as she thought. Then the reality rushed back like cold water. Carefully she shifted, slipping out from the under his arm. His grip tightened for a second as though his body resisted letting her go, but she managed to free herself. She sat at the edge of the bed, hugging her knees, watching him sleep. Even in slumber, his face was unreadable, lips pressed in straight line, jaw sharp. She didn't wake him, she just slipped out of the bed and into the shower, letting the water wash away the warmth she had almost surrendered to. The day unfolded in quiet tension. Wine ate breakfast alone on the kitchen island. Jungkook joined her minutes later, dressed in another impeccable suit. His tie already knotted, he poured his coffee. His movements precise, controlled, neither spoke. He glanced at her once as if wanting to say something, but when her eyes stayed on the plate, he looked away. At the office, she knew the whispers were spreading. Scandal traveled fast in their world. By afternoon, her lines would blow. Cold CEO lost his temper, John marriage more than a merger. But she avoided social media, avoided calls. She buried herself in the part-time charity work, answering emails, arranging fundraisers, anything to ignore the echo of last night. When Jungkook returned late that evening, the silence deepened. He tried in his own way. "Did you eat?" he asked as he set down his briefcase. "Yes," short and clipped. "Are you working tomorrow?" Yes. Every question he asked was met with the bare minimum. Every answer was delivered without a glance. The silent treatment was unintentional at first, born from shock and confusion, but as the hours stretched, it became deliberate. She wanted him to feel the wall she was building. She wanted him to understand that what had happened couldn't just be brushed aside. But Jeon Jungkook wasn't a man who understood silence. He thrived in it, wielded it like a weapon in boardrooms, only now he wasn't sure how to fight it at home, and so he grew restless. That night, when she turned away from him in bed again, he spoke softly into the soft darkness. "Say something." Her heart twisted, but her lips stayed shut. Minutes later, she heard him sigh, a sound heavy enough to press into her bones, but still neither of them moved. Days passed like that. She pulled away, he watched. He asked small questions, she gave small answers. It was like two rivers running side by side but never touching. Yet beneath it all, beneath her silence and his restraint, something new was stirring. Because every time she remembered Lucas' touch, she also remembered Jungkook's fury. Every time she wanted to retreat into numbness, she remembered the heat of his arm around her waist while he slept. And no matter how cold he acted, she couldn't forget the way his voice had broken when he had asked, "Are you hurt?" It wasn't enough to heal, not yet, but it was enough to haunt her. And for Jungkook, the silence was not an answer he could live with forever, because for the first time in his life, he had something to lose. Why? The silence was unbearable. It had been 4 days since the gala. 4 days of clip answers, sidelong glances, and deliberate distance. 4 days of him reaching across a void that only seemed to grow wider. To the outside world, Jeon Jungkook was the same as ever, impeccably dressed, ruthlessly efficient, terrifyingly composed. Dates were signed, empires maintained, his reputation ironclad despite the sand. The press whispered about his outbursts at the gala, but no one dared challenge him openly. But inside his penthouse, inside the one place that was supposed to be his sanctuary, he was losing control because of her, because of the silence she wrapped around herself like armor. That evening he came later than usual. The city glittered beyond the glass walls, but the apartment itself was dim, quiet. She was curled on the sofa with a book, though he doubted she was really reading. Her posture was too stiff, her gaze unfocused. She didn't look up when he entered. "Good evening," he said, his voice low, measured. "Good evening," she replied, eyes still fixed on the page. Jungkook set his briefcase down, loosening his tie as he studied her. The lamp's soft glow brushed her face, highlighting the shadows beneath her eyes. She looked tired, fragile, and he hated it. He hated that he couldn't erase what had happened. Hated that she wouldn't let him near enough to try. "You didn't answer my calls today." "I was busy, too busy to say one word to me." His tone sharpened despite herself. She finally looked up, her eyes flashing. "Do you want me to say something, Jungkook? Fine, thank you. Thank you for humiliating me in front of half of the city. Thank you for reminding me, everyone, that I'm nothing more than your possession." The words landed like a slap. His jaw tightened. "Is that what you think? That I see you as a possession?" Her chest rose and fell quickly. "What else am I supposed to think? You barely speak to me. You keep me at a distance, and then suddenly you punch a man in public and call me yours, like I'm some trophy you needed to protect." The bitterness in his voice sliced in him. He took a step closer and then stopped, forcing his hands into his pockets so he wouldn't reach for her. "I didn't punch him because you're a trophy," he said, his voice rougher than usual. "I punched him because he touched you, because for 1 second I saw him put his hands where they didn't belong. And he broke off, dragging a hand through his hair, something he rarely did. "I couldn't think, I just reached." Her throat tightened. "You reacted in front of everyone." "I don't care about everyone." His voice thundered, then softened as he met her eyes. "I care about you." The silence that followed was heavy, broken only by the distant hum of the city. She swallowed hard, her voice trembling now. "Then why do you act like I don't exist most of the time?" The question pierced deeper than she knew. Jungkook's chest rose sharply. He stared at her, his mask cracking, the weight of years of restraint pressing against him. For so long he had lived behind walls. Walls built them from discipline, control, power. Walls that had kept him safe from weakness. But now, with her staring at him with tears glistening in her eyes, those walls threatened to crumble. "I don't act like you don't exist," he said quietly, each word deliberate. "I act like I'm afraid you will leave if I let you see how much you do. Also, this was a merged alliance. What if you will leave me one day broken, after I fell for you more? But I failed. I fell for you without even realizing that." Her breath caught, the book slipped from her hands, landing softly on the carpet. She stared at him, as if he had just spoken in another language. Jungkook took another step closer, no longer holding back. "I don't know how you do this. I have spent my life keeping everything under control. Business, family, myself. But with you," his voice broke slightly, rough around the edges, With you, I can't control it. That night, I saw him touch you. I want to kill him. Not because of appearances, not because of pride, but because of the thought of anyone hurting you made me lose my control. Her eyes burned, her chest aching with emotion she had kept buried. He stopped just a breath away, his height casting a shadow over her. But this time he didn't feel cold. He felt raw, human. I know I have been distant, he admitted. I thought it was safer for both of us. But I can't stay distant anymore. Not after that night, not after I almost lost the chance to protect you. Tears spilled down her cheeks before she could stop them. She pressed her palms against her face, shaking her head. You don't get it, Jungkook. I don't need a bodyguard. I don't need a CEO who fight my battle. I need my husband. I need you. The words cracked something inside him. For a moment he stood frozen, then slowly he reached for her hands, pulling them gently away from her face. His touch was warm, steady, but hesitant as if asking permission. She didn't pull away, so she cradled her face in his palms. His thumbs brushing away the tears. I'm here, he whispered, for the first time in my life. I want to be here with you, if you will let me. Her lips trembled. She reached for his eyes, and for once she didn't find eyes. She found fire. She found fear. She found truth. The silence between them broke not with words, but with the way she leaned into his touch, the way her breath hissed when his forehead rested gently against hers. He pulled apart to meet her eyes as if he is seeking permission to do something. Then his eyes dropped towards her lips. Wine closed her eyes. Jungkook pressed his lips gently into hers. First slowly and then fastening his moves, he devoured her, as if he was waiting for long for this moment to happen. I love you, he whispered in between the kisses. 2 weeks later, the city buzzed again. Another gala, another ballroom filled with diamonds, whispers, and too much champagne. This time she didn't dare it. Not because she loved these events, she still didn't, but because she wasn't walking in as a silent accessory anymore. She wasn't clinging to the edges of conversations or pretending she belonged. She was walking in as his partner. The The ballroom glittered with chandeliers and chatter. Familiar faces turned toward them, eyes curious, hungry for gossip. She heard snippets as they passed. There they are, the giants. After that scene at the last gala, they seem closer now, don't they? Closer? She almost smiled. If only they knew how close. Halfway through the evening, while Jungkook spoke with a group of investors, she excused herself to the refreshment table. She poured a glass of sparkling water, her reflection shimmering faintly in the crystal. That's when a voice slid behind her. Well, well, the infamous Miss Jones. She stiffened. Slowly she turned. It was Lucas. He had disappeared from the social circles after Jungkook's very public warning. This was someone else, a rival CEO's son, perhaps 30, with slick hair and a smirk too practiced to be genuine. You have certainly made headlines lately, he drawled, eyes roaming too boldly. I must say, I didn't expect that great John Jungkook to crack over a woman, especially one looks so delicate. Her pulse spiked, but she steadied herself. The old version of her, the one who had shrunk into silence, might have ignored it. Not anymore. She lifted her chin. Careful, men who underestimate me usually regret it. His smirk faltered, then sharpened. Feisty, I like that. Maybe if Jungkook ever gets bored. Finish that sentence. Another voice cut in, low and dangerous. Her chest flooded with relief before she even turned. Jungkook stood just behind her. His gaze locked on the man with a force that made the temperature in the room drop. And like last time, he didn't throw a punch. He didn't need to. His presence alone was a weapon. The man chuckled, nervously raising his hands. Relax, Jungkook, just making conversation. Conversations don't start with disrespect. Jungkook said, his voice like steel wrapped in velvet. Remember that if you want to stay in this room. The man paled slightly, muttered something and quickly retreated. Silence hung for a moment. Then Jungkook turned to her, his eyes softened now. Are you alright? She exhaled, realizing she had been holding her breath. Yes, good. His hand brushed her waist gently, a subtle touch hidden from the crowd. Because I meant what I said last time. No one disrespected you ever. Her heart twisted. This wasn't the cold CEO everyone feared. This was her husband. She smiled faintly, leaning closer. You didn't even have to hit him. Her lips curved rare and sharp and leaned closer to give her a peck on the cheek, though there were eyes on them. Don't tempt me, darling.